Rome, 1545. Under the cover of darkness, a group of cardinals gathers in secret within the ancient walls of the Vatican. The flickering candlelight casts long shadows across their concerned faces as they examine documents that would soon spark one of the most profound transformations in Catholic Church history. The decisions made on that fateful night would forever alter the course of Christianity and reshape the Western world. The air is thick with tension as these powerful men of the Church discuss their response to a crisis that threatens to tear apart the fabric of Christian unity. 28 years earlier, in 1517, an Augustinian monk named Martin Luther had publicly challenged the Church's authority by nailing his 95 Theses to the door of Wittenberg Castle Church. But what few people know is that deep within the Vatican's corridors of power, a clandestine network of cardinals had already been laying the groundwork for an even more dramatic revolution. These princes of the Church understood that the Protestant Reformation wasn't just a theological dispute. It was an existential threat to centuries of Catholic tradition and authority. In their secret meetings, they crafted plans for what would become known as the Counter-Reformation, a movement that would revolutionize Catholic doctrine, reform church practices, and unleash a wave of artistic and cultural transformation that would echo through the centuries. As papal seals are broken and ancient manuscripts consulted, these cardinals know they are about to embark on a journey that will involve intrigue, power struggles, and spiritual warfare. The Council of Trent is about to begin, and with it, a new chapter in religious history will be written. This story unveils one of the greatest and most closely guarded secrets of the modern age. Tonight, you'll discover how a select group of church leaders orchestrated a revolution that would rival the Protestant Reformation itself. You'll learn about the hidden networks of power, the secret deliberations, and the masterful strategies that would transform the Catholic Church from within. Join us now as we peel back the layers of history to reveal the truth behind one of Christianity's most pivotal moments. A tale of power, faith, and transformation awaits. Don't miss a single moment of this historical revelation. Hit the bell icon now, like this video, and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles. Join thousands of history investigators who are already uncovering the hidden truths of our past. The secrets of the Counter-Reformation are about to be revealed, and you won't believe what happens next. In the papal apartments, Pope Paul III, born Alessandro Farnese, sits alone in his private chamber. The year is 1545, and before him lie numerous reports detailing the alarming spread of Protestant influence across Europe. By candlelight, his weathered hands trace the words on parchment, his face bearing the weight of the crisis facing the Church. This is a man who has witnessed the corruption that plagued the institution he now leads, having lived through one of its darkest periods. As he contemplates the gravity of his position, his mind drifts back to his years as a cardinal. The memories flood back, the selling of indulgences, the abuse of clerical privileges, the moral decay that had infected the Church from within. He remembers the whispered conversations in Vatican corridors, the mounting pressure for reform, and the growing realization that the Church needed to change or risk losing everything. These experiences had shaped him, transforming him from a product of Renaissance nepotism into the man who would eventually lead the Catholic Church's response to the Protestant Reformation. In a moment of profound clarity, Paul III makes the momentous decision to convene the Council of Trent. This council would become the cornerstone of the Counter-Reformation, a decisive response to the Protestant challenge that would redefine Catholicism for centuries to come. Meanwhile, another extraordinary figure emerges in our story, Ignatius of Loyola, a Spanish knight whose journey from warrior to spiritual leader would profoundly impact the Church's renewal. Picture the battlefield at Pamplona in 1521, where a cannonball shatters not only Ignatius's leg, but also his former life. During his long and painful recovery, this proud soldier experiences a profound spiritual awakening while reading the lives of saints and Christ. The transformation of Ignatius continues in the small town of Manresa, where he spends months in a cave, developing what would become his famous spiritual exercises. These revolutionary meditation and contemplation techniques would later form the backbone of Jesuit spirituality. Through intense fasting, prayer, and spiritual contemplation, the former soldier forges a new understanding of faith and service to God. Most intriguingly, we witness Ignatius gathering a select group of brilliant, dedicated men at the University of Paris. Together, they would secretly form the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuits, in 1534. This elite group would become the intellectual and spiritual army of the Counter-Reformation, combining rigorous education with absolute devotion to the papal authority. The stories of these two men, Paul III, the reforming pope who had witnessed the Church's corruption firsthand, and Ignatius, the warrior-turned-mystic who would create a new kind of religious order, intertwined to create a powerful narrative of institutional reform and spiritual renewal. Their actions and decisions would not only shape the Catholic response to Protestantism, but would also influence education, art, and spirituality for centuries to come. These were not mere historical figures, but complex individuals whose personal transformations mirrored the larger transformation of the Catholic Church itself. Their struggles, decisions, and ultimate triumphs would help forge a renewed Catholicism, one that would emerge stronger and more focused from the challenges of the Protestant Reformation. Picture a vast, candlelit chamber within the halls of the Council of Trent. The camera sweeps through ornate arches and vaulted ceilings, descending slowly to reveal dozens of cardinals engaged in passionate debate. Their crimson robes stand in stark contrast to the cold stone walls, while shafts of light pierce through stained glass windows, creating an almost supernatural atmosphere. The heated debates between cardinals unfold in a series of dramatic sequences. Close-up shots capture the intensity in their eyes as they argue over matters of doctrine. The camera pans across faces showing various emotions: conviction, doubt, anger, and fear. When a cardinal rises to speak against the Protestant interpretation of justification by faith, the room erupts in a cacophony of voices. Some pound their fists on ancient wooden tables, while others rise from their seats, their voices echoing off the chamber walls. Decisive voting moments are portrayed with masterful tension. As each cardinal approaches the altar to cast their vote, the camera follows their deliberate steps. The sound of their footfalls echoes through the silent chamber. Close-ups of trembling hands dropping ballots into ornate golden vessels build suspense. The weight of history is palpable in these moments, as each vote shapes the future of the Catholic Church. The discussion of dogmas creates particularly tense sequences. When debating the nature of transubstantiation, the camera moves in tight circles around the speaking cardinal, reflecting the dizzying theological complexity. The lighting shifts subtly as arguments intensify, shadows deepen, and candlelight flickers more dramatically. During particularly contentious moments, thunder rolls outside, its deep rumble emphasizing the gravity of the decisions being made. Secret meetings in torchlit corridors add layers of intrigue. Whispered conversations between cardinals are captured in intimate close-ups, their faces half hidden in shadow. The camera follows them through winding passages, where their discussions reveal the political maneuvering behind the theological debates. The counting of votes becomes a suspense-filled ritual. Each ballot is carefully opened and read aloud, with reaction shots capturing the subtle changes in expression among the assembled clergy. The camera pulls back to reveal the entire chamber holding its breath as final tallies are announced, decisions that will reshape Christianity forever. Interspersed throughout these scenes are moments of private reflection. A lone cardinal kneels in prayer in a darkened chapel, wrestling with his conscience. The Pope sits alone in his study, the weight of leadership evident in his posture as he reads reports of Protestant advances across Europe. These quiet moments provide crucial emotional depth to the larger dramatic scenes. Time-lapse sequences show the changing of light through the council chamber's windows, marking the passage of days and weeks of debate. The gradual accumulation of documents, the wearing down of quill pens, and the burning of countless candles create a visual testament to the monumental work being undertaken. The camera work emphasizes power dynamics through clever angles, looking up at speaking cardinals to convey authority, or down at opposition to suggest weakness. When crucial proclamations are made, the camera slowly circles the speaker, creating a sense of historic momentum and inevitability. The proceedings are punctuated by scenes of scribes meticulously recording every word, their quills scratching parchment in extreme close-up. These detailed shots remind viewers that every decision made here will be scrutinized for centuries to come. The film's climactic moments come during the final sessions, where the council's decrees are formally proclaimed. Here, the camera pulls back to reveal the full grandeur of the assembled church hierarchy, before cutting to reactions across Europe. Protestant leaders receiving the news, Jesuit missionaries preparing for their global mission, and artists beginning work on what will become Baroque masterpieces. This cinematic treatment transforms complex theological debates into compelling human drama, making the Counter-Reformation accessible and engaging for modern audiences while maintaining historical accuracy and theological depth. Step into the bustling streets of 16th century Rome, where the eternal city pulsates with the energy of the Counter-Reformation. Narrow cobblestone streets wind like veins through the ancient metropolis, barely wide enough for two carriages to pass. The air is thick with the mingled scents of incense wafting from countless churches, fresh bread from corner bakeries, and the ever-present aroma of herbs from apothecary shops. Dawn breaks over the city as vendors begin setting up their stalls in the cramped marketplaces. Street criers announce the day's news, their voices competing with the tolling of church bells. Monks in various habits hurry through the streets, their sandals clicking against worn stones. Noble families' carriages navigate the narrow passages, while servants dodge between market stalls carrying messages and goods. The grandest spectacle in Rome stands half complete. The new St. Peter's Basilica rises like a colossus above the cityscape. Hundreds of workers swarm over the massive construction site, their shouts and the sound of chisels on stone creating a constant symphony of creation. Massive wooden scaffolding reaches toward the heavens, where Michelangelo's ambitious dome design slowly takes shape. Stone blocks are hauled up by elaborate pulley systems, while master craftsmen debate architectural details in the shadow of rising walls. Inside the partially completed basilica, the scale is overwhelming. Shafts of light pierce through temporary openings, illuminating clouds of marble dust. Artisans carve intricate details into capitals and cornices, while others lay precious marble in complex patterns across the vast floor. The sound of hammering and chiseling echoes through the massive space, mixing with the occasional chant of priests conducting services in the completed sections. Throughout Rome, monasteries and convents undergo their own transformation. Behind thick stone walls, living quarters are being modernized to reflect new standards of clerical discipline. Libraries are expanded to house growing collections of approved texts, while scriptorium are converted into more efficient spaces for the production and censorship of books. In convent gardens, nuns tend to medicinal herbs while overseeing renovations that will better separate their cloistered lives from the outside world. The city's artistic quarter buzzes with unprecedented activity. In crowded ateliers, artists experiment with new techniques to create works that will move the faithful to religious devotion. Sculptors chip away at marble blocks, revealing dynamic figures that seem to defy gravity. Painters mix pigments and discuss composition, their canvases showing early examples of what will become the Baroque style. Apprentices grind colors and prepare canvases, while masters debate the proper way to depict religious ecstasy and divine glory. In secret workshops, goldsmiths craft elaborate religious vessels, their hammers creating a delicate percussion as they shape precious metals. The smell of molten gold and silver mingles with the smoke from their forges. Nearby, woodcarvers create intricate frames and altarpieces, their workshops filled with the sweet scent of freshly cut wood and varnish. The city's intellectual life centers around newly established Jesuit colleges, where scholars debate theological points in courtyards and lecture halls. The scratching of quills on parchment and the rustle of turning pages provide a constant backdrop to intense discussions of doctrine and strategy. As evening approaches, the city takes on a different character. Torches and oil lamps illuminate the streets, casting dramatic shadows on ancient walls. Through church windows, the glow of candlelight reveals late-night masses and prayer vigils. In hidden corners, informers for the Inquisition observe and take notes, while diplomatic couriers hurry through back alleys carrying secret messages. This Rome is a city in the midst of transformation, where medieval traditions clash with Counter-Reformation innovations. Every corner tells a story of change, from the grandest basilica to the humblest chapel, from spacious papal apartments to cramped artist studios. It's a living theater where the drama of Catholic renewal plays out daily, shaping the future of religious art, architecture, and faith itself. Our story begins in the shadows of Vatican corridors, where a select group of cardinals receives encrypted messages summoning them to a secret gathering. The year is 1545, and the Catholic Church faces its greatest crisis since the Great Schism. In hidden chambers, illuminated only by candlelight, these princes of the Church lay the groundwork for what would become the most significant religious council of the modern era. The first sessions explode with tension as competing factions clash over the very nature of reform. Conservative cardinals advocate for immediate condemnation of Protestant doctrines, while reformers push for internal church renovation. The debates grow so heated that guards are posted outside the council chambers to prevent information leaks and ensure the safety of the participants. The theological confrontation reaches its peak during the debates on justification by faith. The council chamber becomes an intellectual battleground where centuries of Catholic doctrine collide with Protestant challenges. Cardinals cite ancient texts and church fathers, their arguments echoing through the vaulted ceilings as they craft a response that would definitively separate Catholic from Protestant theology. The Reformation of sacraments proves equally contentious. Each element of Catholic ritual comes under scrutiny, from baptism to extreme unction. The Council meticulously defines each sacrament's nature, effect, and proper administration. This process reveals the deep divisions within the Church itself, as different traditions and interpretations compete for official recognition. The Council's decisions on sacred art represent a revolutionary moment in cultural history. Responding to Protestant iconoclasm, the Council not only defends religious imagery, but establishes new guidelines for artistic expression. These declarations would unleash a creative explosion that would transform Western art. As the Council deliberates, the Inquisition expands its reach across Europe. Networks of informants spread through cities and villages, while new tribunals are established to combat heresy. Secret reports flow into Rome, detailing the movement of suspected Protestants and the discovery of forbidden texts. Meanwhile, Ignatius of Loyola and his companions build the Jesuit Order into an intellectual and missionary powerhouse. Their innovative educational system combines humanist learning with strict Catholic orthodoxy. Jesuit missionaries push into new territories, from the Americas to Asia, while their schools reshape European education. The development of Baroque art emerges as a powerful weapon in the Counter-Reformation arsenal. Artists receive commissions to create works that will overwhelm the senses and stir religious emotions. In workshops across Rome, painters and sculptors experiment with dynamic compositions, dramatic lighting, and emotional intensity that will characterize the new style. The narrative threads interweave as the Council's decrees influence each parallel development. Jesuit educators implement the Council's doctrinal clarifications. Inquisitors enforce its disciplinary reforms. Artists translate its theological insights into visual masterpieces. The story reaches its climax as the Council concludes, but its effects continue to ripple through history. The Catholic Church emerges transformed, armed with clear doctrine, reformed institutions, and powerful new tools for spreading its message. The legacy of these events extends far beyond religion. The intellectual rigor of Jesuit education, the emotional power of Baroque art, and the organizational principles developed during this period continue to influence modern institutions and cultural expressions. Today, we can still trace the influence of these momentous events. The educational methods developed by the Jesuits shape modern pedagogy. The dramatic style of Baroque art influences contemporary visual culture. The organizational structures established during the Counter-Reformation provide models for modern institutions. Fascinating, isn't it? But this is just the beginning. Share your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles. Let's uncover together the mysteries that changed the course of history. Deep within the Vatican archives lie thousands of classified documents from the Holy Office, known today as the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. These yellowed pages hold the dark secrets of the Inquisition's operations across Europe. Written in complex codes and ancient ciphers, many of these documents remain uncracked to this day, their secrets locked away for centuries. The Holy Office developed an intricate system of surveillance and information gathering. Their network of informants extended from royal courts to humble village taverns. Specially trained priests would disguise themselves as travelers, merchants, or even Protestant sympathizers to gather intelligence. They maintained detailed records of suspected heretics, including intimate details of their daily lives, associations, and potential weaknesses that could be exploited during interrogation. Perhaps even more fascinating was the Jesuit intelligence network, which rivaled and often surpassed those of Europe's most powerful monarchs. The Society of Jesus created an unprecedented global communication system. Jesuit priests served as advisors to kings, educators of nobles, and confessors to powerful families, positioning them to gather sensitive information from across the globe. Their reports to Rome contained not only religious intelligence, but also detailed political, economic, and military information that proved invaluable to the Catholic Church's strategic planning. The Baroque art movement concealed its own set of mysteries. Artists embedded hidden symbols and coded messages within their masterpieces. The positioning of figures, the use of specific numbers and architectural elements, and even the arrangement of flowers in still-life paintings could contain encrypted communications. Some scholars suggest that certain Baroque churches were designed with acoustic properties that allowed secret messages to be whispered across vast spaces, creating an early surveillance system disguised as architectural innovation. Confidential reports about heretics reveal a sophisticated classification system. The Inquisition developed detailed profiles of different types of heretical beliefs, creating what might be considered one of the first systematic approaches to ideological profiling. These documents show how inquisitors were trained to identify subtle signs of heretical belief, from specific patterns of speech to seemingly innocent daily habits that might betray Protestant sympathies. The most intriguing aspects of these reports are the psychological tactics developed for interrogation. The Inquisition's questioners were trained in sophisticated methods of extracting information, including early forms of psychological manipulation. They understood how to use sleep deprivation, isolation, and carefully crafted questioning to break down resistance without leaving physical marks. Some historians believe that the Counter-Reformation period saw the development of the first modern surveillance state. The Church created systems for monitoring book production and distribution, controlling information flow, and tracking the movement of people and ideas across borders. These methods would later influence the development of state intelligence agencies centuries later. The Jesuit Order's educational institutions often served as sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations. Students from prominent families would unwittingly provide valuable information about their family's political and religious leanings. The Jesuits' famous attention to detail and record-keeping allowed them to build extensive databases of information about influential families across Europe. Many of these systems and methods remained operational well into the modern era, with some scholars suggesting that certain networks were never fully dismantled, but merely transformed. The influence of these early modern intelligence-gathering methods can still be seen in contemporary surveillance systems and intelligence operations, making the Counter-Reformation not just a religious movement, but a crucial moment in the development of modern statecraft and intelligence gathering. The original acts of the Council of Trent stand as monumental testaments to one of the Catholic Church's most pivotal moments. These meticulously preserved documents, written in elegant Latin script on vellum, span thousands of pages across multiple volumes. Each session's proceedings were recorded by multiple notaries, creating a system of verification that ensured accuracy. The marginalia found in these documents often reveal heated debates and last-minute amendments that never made it into the final decrees, offering historians intimate glimpses into the Council's dynamic nature. Among the most fascinating discoveries in recent years has been the extensive correspondence between Ignatius of Loyola and Pope Paul III. These letters, many written in a complex cipher to prevent interception, reveal the strategic thinking behind the formation of the Jesuit Order. Ignatius's letters demonstrate remarkable political acumen, discussing not only spiritual matters, but also detailed plans for establishing educational institutions and missionary networks. The Pope's responses show initial skepticism transforming into strong support as the Jesuit Order proved its worth in combating Protestant influence. The architectural plans of Baroque churches represent another crucial body of evidence. These technical drawings, often accompanied by detailed notes and calculations, reveal how architectural design was weaponized in the Counter-Reformation's spiritual warfare. The plans show innovative acoustic engineering that allowed priests' voices to carry throughout vast spaces, sight lines carefully calculated to create maximum dramatic impact, and hidden chambers for surveillance and security. Particularly noteworthy are the original designs for the Gesù Church in Rome, which became the template for Jesuit churches worldwide. Perhaps the most chilling documentation comes from the Inquisition manuals, particularly the infamous Directorium Inquisitorum. These handbooks provided detailed instructions for identifying, investigating, and interrogating suspected heretics. They included psychological profiles of different types of heretics, methods for detecting deception, and precise protocols for conducting trials. The manuals contain elaborate decision trees helping inquisitors determine degrees of heresy and appropriate punishments, revealing a bureaucratic system of surprising sophistication. Financial records have proven particularly illuminating. Ledgers detail the enormous resources poured into the Counter-Reformation effort, from construction costs of new churches to stipends paid to informants. These accounts reveal networks of patronage and power that undergirded the Catholic response to Protestantism. Records of art commissions show how the Church strategically invested in visual propaganda, with detailed contracts specifying exactly how religious scenes should be depicted to maximize emotional impact. Construction documents for Jesuit colleges provide insight into how educational spaces were designed to reinforce Catholic doctrine. Architectural plans show theaters built for religious plays, specialized classrooms for theological debate, and libraries with separate sections for approved and restricted books. These documents often include detailed instructions for acoustic design to facilitate surveillance of students and faculty. Diplomatic correspondence between papal nuncios and the Vatican offers a broader perspective on the Counter-Reformation's international dimension. These reports contain detailed intelligence about Protestant movements, political alignments, and the effectiveness of Catholic reform efforts in different regions. Many include coded sections discussing sensitive political information that could affect the Church's strategy. The personal diaries and notebooks of key figures provide intimate insights into the period. Cardinals' private journals reveal behind-the-scenes negotiations at the Council of Trent, while the notebooks of Jesuit missionaries document their strategies for converting indigenous peoples in the New World. These personal accounts often contradict official narratives, revealing the complex human dynamics behind institutional decisions. Particularly significant are the records of the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the list of forbidden books. These documents include not just the banned titles, but also the reasoning behind each ban and reports from censors detailing potentially dangerous ideas. The evolution of censorship criteria reveals how the Church's approach to controlling information became increasingly sophisticated over time. Archaeological evidence has corroborated many documentary sources. Recent excavations of Baroque church foundations have revealed hidden passages and surveillance systems mentioned in architectural plans. Analysis of art materials has confirmed the existence of concealed symbols and messages documented in private correspondence. These physical findings provide tangible verification of written accounts, helping historians piece together a more complete picture of this transformative period in religious history. This vast body of documentation continues to yield new insights as historians apply modern analytical techniques. Digital imaging has revealed previously invisible marginalia, while chemical analysis of inks and papers has helped authenticate documents and establish precise chronologies. The ongoing process of discovering and interpreting these historical records ensures that our understanding of the Counter-Reformation continues to evolve, revealing new layers of complexity in this pivotal historical moment. The Counter-Reformation triggered a series of rapid and dramatic changes that reshaped the Catholic Church almost overnight. The reform of the clergy emerged as one of the most visible and urgent transformations. Bishops were now required to actually reside in their dioceses, a revolutionary concept that ended the practice of absentee prelates collecting multiple benefices. Priests underwent rigorous new training programs, with strict enforcement of celibacy rules and prohibition of concubinage. The Church implemented a comprehensive system of episcopal visitations to ensure compliance with these new standards. The standardization of the Mass represented another immediate and far-reaching change. The Council of Trent established precise rubrics for every aspect of liturgical celebration, from the position of the celebrant's hands to the exact words of consecration. This standardization created a unified Catholic experience from Ireland to Italy, effectively ending centuries of regional variation in liturgical practice. The promulgation of the Roman Missal in 1570 ensured that the same Mass would be celebrated in the same way throughout the Catholic world. The creation of seminaries revolutionized clerical formation. These new institutions implemented rigorous academic curricula combining theological study with spiritual formation. Future priests now underwent years of structured training, including courses in Latin, theology, scripture, and pastoral care. The seminary system effectively ended the medieval practice of poorly educated priests learning their duties through apprenticeship. Book censorship became an immediate and powerful tool of Catholic reform. The Index of Forbidden Books established strict control over what Catholics could read, while new printing regulations required all religious works to receive official approval before publication. This created a sophisticated system of intellectual control that would influence European thought for centuries. The strengthening of papal authority emerged as one of the Counter-Reformation's most enduring legacies. The The Pope's position as supreme arbiter of doctrine and discipline became firmly established, creating a centralized authority structure that would characterize Catholicism through the modern era. This consolidation of papal power influenced everything from local parish administration to international diplomacy. The global expansion of Catholicism accelerated dramatically through the Counter-Reformation period. Jesuit missionaries, armed with new strategies for evangelization and cultural adaptation, established Catholic communities from China to South America. This expansion created a truly global church, with networks of communication and control extending far beyond Europe's borders. The influence on art and architecture proved revolutionary and long-lasting. The Baroque style, developed as a counter-reformation tool, transformed not just religious art but the entire Western aesthetic tradition. Its emphasis on emotional impact and dramatic presentation influenced everything from urban planning to theater design. The principles of Baroque architecture continued to influence religious and secular building design well into the 20th century. Jesuit education developed into a sophisticated system that would influence modern pedagogy. The Ratio Studiorum, the Jesuit educational plan, established principles of systematic instruction, regular assessment, and character formation that would become standard features of modern education. Jesuit schools introduced innovations like student theaters, public examinations, and graduated class levels that we now take for granted. The Counter-Reformation's impact on intellectual life extended far beyond religious matters. The emphasis on systematic theology influenced the development of modern philosophical methods. The careful argumentation required in theological debates contributed to the evolution of scientific thinking. Even the Inquisition's investigative procedures influenced the development of modern legal systems. Social impacts proved equally profound and long-lasting. The Counter-Reformation's emphasis on individual confession and spiritual direction helped develop modern concepts of personal identity and self-examination. The establishment of new religious orders for women provided unprecedented opportunities for female education and leadership within strictly defined limits. The movement's influence on politics created lasting effects on state-church relations. The principle of cuius regio, ius religio, the ruler's religion determines the state's religion, established patterns of religious nationalism that would influence European politics for centuries. The sophisticated diplomatic networks developed during this period contributed to the evolution of modern international relations. Economic impacts included the development of new financial networks to support global missionary work and the establishment of educational institutions. The Church's patronage of art and architecture stimulated economic activity in multiple sectors, while new religious orders often engaged in banking and commercial activities. The Counter-Reformation's emphasis on education and literacy had far-reaching cultural effects. The establishment of printing houses to produce approved religious texts contributed to the spread of literacy, while the standardization of religious education created common cultural reference points across Catholic Europe. These transformations continue to influence contemporary institutions and practices. Modern educational methods still reflect Jesuit innovations, while current debates about media control echo Counter-Reformation concerns about controlling information flow. The movement's legacy lives on in everything from architectural styles to approaches to organizational management. Let's embark on a fascinating journey through alternative history. Imagine a world where the Catholic Church never mounted its systematic response to the Protestant Reformation. The year is 1545, but instead of convening the Council of Trent, the Church continues its business as usual. This decision, or rather lack of decision, would create rippling effects throughout history that would fundamentally alter the world as we know it. In this alternative timeline, Christianity might have evolved along radically different lines. Without the Council's clear doctrinal definitions, the boundaries between Catholic and Protestant theology could have remained more fluid. We might have seen the emergence of hybrid forms of Christianity, combining elements of both traditions. The Catholic Church, without its reformed institutional structure, might have continued to lose influence in Northern Europe while maintaining a looser hold on its southern territories. The absence of strict Catholic orthodoxy could have led to a more diverse religious landscape in Southern Europe. Spain and Italy might have experienced their own versions of Reformation movements, potentially leading to a more fragmented but possibly more tolerant religious environment. The lack of a unified Catholic response might have allowed for greater religious experimentation and the emergence of new Christian denominations. Western art would have taken a dramatically different path without the Counter-Reformation's influence. Without the Council's guidelines on religious art, the Baroque style might never have emerged in its familiar form. Instead of the emotional intensity and dramatic flair of Baroque art, we might have seen a continuation of Mannerist trends or the development of entirely different artistic movements. Protestant influence on art might have become more dominant, possibly leading to a more austere and less ornate artistic tradition throughout Europe. The absence of Baroque architecture would have left an enormous void in our cultural heritage. Cities like Rome might look strikingly different today. Without the theatrical churches and grand public spaces that characterized the Baroque period, urban planning might have followed more utilitarian principles. The emotional and sensory impact of religious architecture, so central to the Counter-Reformation strategy, might have been replaced by simpler, more functional designs. Education would have developed along vastly different lines without the Jesuit contribution. The sophisticated educational system developed by the Society of Jesus might never have emerged, depriving the world of innovations in pedagogical methods that we now take for granted. Without the network of Jesuit schools and universities, the transmission of classical learning might have been more limited, potentially slowing the development of humanities education in Catholic countries. The systematic approach to education that characterized Jesuit schools might have been replaced by more diverse and possibly less structured educational methods. The emphasis on rhetoric and debate, characteristic of Jesuit education, might not have become so central to Western educational traditions. The standardization of educational practices across Europe might have developed more slowly or taken different forms entirely. Scientific development might have followed a different trajectory. Without the Jesuit Order's emphasis on scientific inquiry within a religious framework, the relationship between science and religion might have evolved differently. The sophisticated intellectual traditions developed in Catholic universities might have taken different forms, or might not have emerged at all. The global spread of Christianity would have looked remarkably different. Without the missionary zeal of the Reformed Catholic orders, particularly the Jesuits, the expansion of Christianity into Asia and the Americas might have been less systematic and possibly less successful. The complex cultural adaptations developed by Jesuit missionaries might never have emerged, potentially leading to different patterns of cultural exchange between Europe and other continents. Political developments would have taken different turns as well. Without the reinvigorated Catholic Church as a counterweight to Protestant powers, the political map of Europe might have evolved differently. The principle of cuius regio, ius religio, might not have become so firmly established, potentially leading to different patterns of state formation and national identity. This alternative history reminds us of how pivotal the Council of Trent was in shaping our modern world. Its absence would have created a fundamentally different religious, cultural, and educational landscape. The world we know, with its rich Baroque heritage, sophisticated educational traditions, and complex relationship between faith and reason, might have been dramatically different if those cardinals had never gathered in Trent in 1545. These alternative scenarios challenge us to think deeply about historical causation and the interconnectedness of religious, cultural, and social developments. They remind us that the world we inhabit is the result of specific choices and actions taken at crucial historical moments, and that different choices might have led us down remarkably different paths. The Counter-Reformation's influence resonates powerfully through contemporary culture, shaping everything from how we experience art to how we approach education. Let's explore this remarkable legacy that continues to shape our modern world. In contemporary art, the Counter-Reformation's influence manifests in surprising ways. Modern artists frequently draw upon Baroque techniques of dramatic lighting and emotional intensity, even in secular works. The use of chiaroscuro, pioneered by Caravaggio during the Counter-Reformation, influences contemporary photographers and cinematographers. Contemporary installation artists often employ the Baroque principle of total sensory engagement, creating immersive experiences that echo the theatrical nature of Counter-Reformation churches. The theatrical elements of Baroque art find new expression in modern performance art and multimedia installations. The concept of art as a tool for emotional and spiritual transformation, central to Counter-Reformation thinking, remains influential in contemporary theories about art's social and psychological impact. Modern religious art continues to grapple with questions first addressed during the Counter-Reformation about how to represent the divine in an increasingly secular world. Jesuit educational institutions represent one of the Counter-Reformation's most enduring legacies. Today, Jesuit universities like Georgetown, Fordham, and Boston College in the United States continue to implement educational principles developed during the Counter-Reformation. The Jesuit emphasis on rigorous analysis, ethical reasoning, and personal reflection remains central to their educational philosophy. The concept of cura personalis, care for the whole person, continues to influence approaches to student development. These institutions maintain the Jesuit tradition of combining academic excellence with social responsibility. Their emphasis on global perspective and cross-cultural understanding traces directly back to early Jesuit missionary practices. Modern Jesuit schools continue to innovate in higher education, while maintaining their distinctive approach to intellectual and moral formation. Contemporary religious practices show clear traces of Counter-Reformation influence. The emphasis on regular confession and spiritual direction, established during the Counter-Reformation, continues to shape Catholic pastoral care. The structured approach to personal devotion, developed through works like Ignatius's Spiritual Exercises, influences modern retreat programs and mindfulness practices, even in secular contexts. The Counter-Reformation's impact on liturgical practice remains evident in contemporary Catholic worship. The emphasis on clear doctrinal teaching and standardized ritual, established at Trent, continues to influence how Catholic services are conducted worldwide. Even the current use of vernacular languages in Catholic services represents an evolution of Counter-Reformation concerns about making doctrine accessible to the faithful. Modern church architecture reveals fascinating continuities with Counter-Reformation principles. Contemporary Catholic churches often reinterpret Baroque concepts of sacred space for modern sensibilities. The emphasis on clear sightlines to the altar and acoustic design for optimal sound projection continues to influence church construction. Modern architects often reference Counter-Reformation principles about the relationship between space and spiritual experience. The integration of art and architecture, perfected during the Counter-Reformation, influences how modern churches incorporate visual elements into their design. Contemporary sacred spaces often employ updated versions of Baroque techniques for managing light and creating focal points for devotion. The Counter-Reformation understanding of architecture as a tool for spiritual transformation continues to inform discussions about sacred space design. The legacy extends beyond Catholic contexts. Protestant church design often defines itself in relation to Counter-Reformation principles, either by rejection or selective adaptation. The debate about the role of visual arts in worship, sparked during the Counter-Reformation, continues to influence how different Christian denominations approach church decoration and design. The Counter-Reformation's organizational innovations continue to influence modern institutional structures. The systematic approach to record-keeping, the clear chains of authority, and the emphasis on standardized procedures developed during this period provide models for modern organizational management. The global communications network developed by the Jesuits prefigured modern international organizations. In education beyond Jesuit institutions, Counter-Reformation influences persist in the emphasis on systematic curriculum development, regular assessment, and character formation alongside academic achievement. The integration of humanities and sciences, characteristic of Jesuit education, influences modern liberal arts programs. And that was another incredible story from the modern age. Like this video, hit the bell icon, share with other history enthusiasts, and subscribe to Modern Age Chronicles to never miss a historical revelation. Join us next time as we continue to uncover the fascinating secrets that shaped our world. The Counter-Reformation's legacy reminds us that historical movements continue to shape our world long after their immediate context has passed. Its influence on art, education, religion, and architecture demonstrates how thoroughly this period transformed Western culture, creating patterns and principles that continue to evolve and adapt to contemporary needs.